Gavin, I teased a little bit of an hors d'oeuvre. I teased a little bit of a taster.
An amuse-bouche.
Yeah, tickle the palate a little bit, everyone, before we
Tickle
get
the
to
taint.
the main course. Not maybe that. Maybe, wait till you hear this. Wait till you get a load of this, Gavin, because I was excited to get your reaction to this new low, shocking new low. We thought Jimmy was out of new lows, right? He was selling anti-aging serums in the form of coffee.
I actually got some of that coffee. We need to try it soon on air. I got like a sample pack from the website. And we're gonna have to try it on air and see if it's any good, see if it de-ages us in real time.
Yeah, you guys will be the judge. Will Gavin and I look younger? I saw this clip last night and I thought it was, just appalling. I'm not saying that I'm shocked that Jimmy Dore would do this, but the way he goes about doing it is just so facepalm worthy. Just, what are you doing, man? The brain worm from RFK has clearly already finished gobbling up whatever was left of that man's pickled cranium.
It jumped toasts.
Yeah.
And now it's residing in Jimmy's noggin, eating away.
Oh God, having a feast apparently.
Oh God.
Now, let's remember where these charges came from.
And he's talking about Russell Brand sex crimes, by the way. Okay, so let's just be clear about that. He's talking about a man who has been accused by almost half a dozen women. He's been accused by somebody who was a minor at the time, somebody who has a rape kit with his DNA and an apology text from him, basically a confession, if you ask me, among other women who have come forward anonymously. This is what Jimmy has to say about it.
Now, let's remember where these charges came from. These women didn't go to the police.
Yes, they literally fucking did.
This came from a hit job, a coordinated hit job in the UK press after Russell Brand came out against the establishment and told the truth about COVID. That was just
know about Tucker Carlson. Is he also guilty of some heinous? Why are you mixing these guys up, bro?
And what's crazy about this, for people who haven't been following this step by step, Russell Brand has actually been an enemy of the British establishment for long before he started, questioning COVID like Jimmy wants to pretend. He made his whole brand in 2014 that he was going to be a problem child, and he tried to do the whole Michael Moore thing where he rented a truck and he blasted himself heckling people in the Wall Street of London, and he was always a thorn in the side in the press and all of those things. That's not why this came to the surface now, okay? Why he ran to the anti-vax, the COVID conspiracy, the now evangelism part of the podcast scene was because he knew he would be insulated from these crimes should they ever come to the surface. And yes, there were women that took their rape kits to specialists, right? And they wanted to bring their charges forward. However, if you're trying to sue a massive celebrity, it's a huge issue, right? It was a big problem, particularly when you're dealing with somebody who is not a resident of the United States, right? You're dealing with a foreign national. One of these women was a victim in Los Angeles, right? You're just dealing with a lot of hurdles. So it makes sense for a lot of these victims to come together and unify. And the Channel 4 or whatever it was in the London Times collaboration, which was the big scandal that broke a few years ago, which we covered in depth on the show, kind of walks you through that process if you were genuinely curious about it.
Big sin.
They went to find women
to
do it.
So the newspapers went and interviewed every woman who ever knew him for the last 30 years, and they got four of them.
I will now put an open call out to journalists. Feel free to talk to all the people, all the women I've ever known. You're not going to find four of them that claim these things. I'm sorry.
How many are they going to? I'm kidding.
But I'm saying most people, you could go through the list and call up the folks in the Rolodex or whatever. And it's if there's something there, then you might find it. If not, then you won't. Obviously, someone might exaggerate a claim. Obviously, someone might lie or fabricate some bullshit. But that's the fucking point of journalism, to investigate and interrogate those claims, to find out if they're worthy of being published. Clearly, the journalists, which were working for a very reputable outlet, decided that it was newsworthy, decided that there was enough evidence to meet that standard of journalistic merit. And again, it was multiple people, not just one scorned, lover or some shit like that Russell Brand betrayed. No, it was a bunch of people, some of which were like underage at the time, or 16, which technically was the age of consent in the UK at the time, but still underage here.
A high school student. And Jimmy Dore was one of those, I'm lefty, but I've left the left guys who really leaned into the groomer rhetoric. He would talk all the time about, oh, well, you know, you've got all these groomers, and he was very anti-trans and all of his stuff. But you realize what it all boils down to is he doesn't actually care about predators. He doesn't actually care about, you know, the Epstein thing. How many videos did he make about Joe Biden being a pervert, right? He doesn't actually care about any of these things, because when it's one of his friends, he'll sweep it under the rug. But yeah, everybody should be appalled by the fact that this man used, at the bare minimum, his status and his wealth and his celebrity to prey on a 16-year-old girl, right? Somebody who says she did not even consent to the acts which he forced her to do. Literally, he raped a child, right? A 16-year-old girl. On top of that, I constantly bring this one up because it is the most, you know, airtight of the victims that have come forward. This person got a rape kit immediately after leaving Russell Brand's house, and he texted her apologizing, saying that, you know, he wouldn't do it again, all this kind of stuff. She was like, no means no. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And she came forward and was never able to, you know, get the ball moving. These guys are really powerful. Somebody in chat said like less than 2% of cases are prosecuted in England, which is absolutely crazy. That seems shockingly low. But either way,
to come and say something anonymously, by the way, they were saying it anonymously in the newspaper. So it was all anonymous. They didn't go to the newspapers. The newspapers went to them and ginned this up. And
MI5.
So yeah, please don't tell me this isn't exactly what they did to Julian Assange. Do you remember what they did to Julian Assange? Now let's remember where these charges came from.
What a fucking insult, by the way. I've said this before, and it's not like Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand are the first people to use this example, but I remember Nick Brana also, you know, compared himself to Julian Assange. Oh, this is the same thing they did to Julian Assange. And by the way, take a look at this, Zach. I think this is hilarious from Tucker. He's, you know, said something that basically Jimmy Dore is just echoing here. He's basically just plagiarizing exactly what Tucker said, which is what a lot of these, you know, right way. I was saying that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene was doing the other day with Iran. She was basically just saying exactly what Tucker said, which in that instance was actually the right thing to say. And I'm glad that Tucker said it. But in this case, yeah, Jimmy's just basically regurgitating the same script. Russell Brand was once a famous left-wing actor celebrated by the British establishment. Then he criticized the government for using COVID to turn the UK into a totalitarian state. Okay. And that's something that you'll see from these idiots a lot defending Russell Brand. They're trying to act like, you know, the UK has fallen. It's no longer a free country. You can't even speak out. There's no such thing as free speech. They do this with Canada too, right? They try to act like it's fucking like Nicaragua or something, as if you don't have like much better free speech rights than the vast majority of the world. But either way, yeah, Britain has become a fucking totalitarian regime. And yeah, so it's all this bullshit, but that's what Jimmy's plagiarizing.
Great point that Jimmy's just, you know, repeating exactly what Tucker Carlson says, because I think that's true, but it's also a fucking lie. When was he the fucking celebrated by the British establishment? He never was. Here's an article from over 12 years ago talking about Russell Brand, right? This is pre-Me Too, right? In case anybody wants to believe that he's just being targeted, you know, now for political reasons. Russell Brand becomes face of UK's anonymous protest. He was a thorn in the British establishment side his entire career. This was a guy that was fired from MTV for being too provocative. When was he a darling of the establishment? He never was. That was his whole bit. The problem was he had some sense and he had some rationality at one point, and he was interested in sticking up for the working class, and he was interested in being provocative in the correct way. And I still remember when he hosted the VMAs and he came out and he was like, we've got to get Barack Obama elected because where I'm from in England, we don't have people dying on the streets because they can't afford health insurance. And it was a big deal. And everybody was like, oh, he's getting so political at the VMAs, but he was saying the right things, right? What happened was he knew that his sexual assault cases were going to bubble up. He couldn't keep them quiet anymore, even though he did this entire evolution into I'm a spiritual being, I love Jesus, all this kind of crap. It wasn't enough to insulate him from it. And so he had to figure out a way to, you know, create doubt. And so that's why people like Tucker Carlson are trying to do this now. But it's absolutely untrue that he was ever celebrated by the establishment. In fact, that one philosopher that a lot of people write, like Mark Fisher, he wrote that article or the essay, like Exiting the Vampire Castle or whatever it was called, where he talks a lot about Russell Brand and how, he was one of these interesting figures who, spoke up for working class politics and all these kinds of things. Turns out he was a pervert, which sucks. But he actually did at one point back in the day have better politics, it seemed, and they were never sympathetic to the establishment. So it's impossible for Tucker to make that argument now.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid. And also, again, just so everyone understands the point of this. Let me put this back up on screen. Yeah, the point of this is so that Russell Brand can avoid justice. That's the whole point of Jimmy and Tucker Carlson running defense, because they don't want this guy, they don't want their boy to actually have to stand trial and prove his ass fucking innocent. And look at this. It says he has no shot at a fair trial because Britain is no longer a free country. Again, so fucking ridiculous. Not that England is above criticism, but to act like it's no longer a free country. Okay. Over the last few years, millions of foreigners have applied for asylum in the United States. Russell Brand actually deserves it. Say a prayer that the Trump administration comes to his rescue. So meanwhile, these villains manufacture consent for the deportation of innocent fucking families, the cook at your local restaurant, the caregiver, to whatever, all the people that actually improve society, they're getting fucking deported. But this is one foreigner that really deserves asylum, Zach, because of the totalitarian, government of the United Kingdom, which again is absolutely fucking hilarious. And again, here he is comparing Russell Brand to Julian Assange, who, by the way, actually is a goddamn hero, a genuine fucking hero, someone who actually sacrificed everything for the ability to tell the truth. How dare you fucking put his name in the same sentence as a clown like Russell Brand?
Yeah, and just so everybody's clear, what Julian Assange was accused of involved a single victim, right? And it basically involved him being accused of taking off a condom without consent and then basically re-entering, right? If he did that, that's fucking wrong, and he should stand trial for it, right? He shouldn't have been held in Belmarsh prison for a bunch of other crimes, whatever. We could all agree with that. That is not in any way, shape, or form by accusation, even if it was 100% true, which I don't happen to believe it is. They did not choose to prosecute him after he was, let out of the, kerfuffle that he was in after many, many years of punishment. So I think that's kind of revealing. But anyway, even if he did it, which would be wrong, and he should be tried for it, right? That wasn't what they were after. And it's not the same thing as Russell Brand, who has, again, I say, half a dozen victims with clear documented, legal cases. And Jimmy tried to, kind of create a smokescreen about that. He tried to act like it was just, shoddy journalists that were coming after Russell Brand, that it was a media hit job, right? But what he doesn't want you to know is that Russell Brand's actually already had to start appearing in court in the UK. This is a very serious thing, which is moving forward. Russell Brand was granted bail after appearing in court on rape and assault charges. The political pundit and comedian Russell Brand has been released on conditional bail until his hearing on May 30th, guys. That's coming up. His case in the UK will coincide with the Diddy case in America. I think that's pretty interesting. We're going to keep our eyes on both. The news comes after Brand's court appearance earlier today. The allegations against Brand stem back to 2023 when the Times, the Sunday Times, and Channel 4 published a joint investigation. I highly recommend everybody read that joint investigation, or go back and listen to some of Gavin and I's former podcast episodes about it. It's something that we've been covering since it broke as a major scandal. But anyway, they want you to think it's just a media hit job. No, this is going to court. This is going to be decided by the justice system of the UK. And that's why, as Gavin pointed out, Tucker Carlson wants to create doubt about how he can't get a fair trial, because he's hook, line, and sinker going to get convicted. And this isn't a civil trial, guys. This isn't about money. This is a criminal trial where if he's convicted, he will serve time in a penitentiary.
Yep. And I hope he does, because again, innocent until proven guilty. There's obviously been a lot of very compelling evidence put forward by reporters and journalists, but he does deserve to defend himself and try to prove himself innocent. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to go well for the guy. But obviously, that'll be very interesting to keep track of. Also, Zach, speaking of Jimmy Dore, I wanted to quickly show you guys this.
Oh, do you want to finish the clip first, though?
Oh, I didn't realize there was more left on it.
It's okay. We only have a little bit left.
And
MI5.
So yeah, please don't tell me this isn't exactly what they did to Julian Assange. Do you remember what they did to Julian?
Oh wait, no, never mind. Gavin was right. We did finish it. My bad.
Gotcha. No problem. Well, speaking of Jimmy Dore, that clown, let's take a look at this because actually one of the funniest people, one of the most crazy people that you probably can't even imagine actually got the best of him in a recent exchange, Zach, where he was called out by none other than David Icke. Let's take a look here. I'm so sick of these people who told you to vote for Trump and now try to save their credibility by criticizing him for what any idiot could see he was always going to do. Israel owns Trump. You mean to tell me you didn't know that for at least a decade, Jimmy? Bullshit. This doesn't age well from October 2024. And then let's take a look at this real quick from just the other day. And then we'll take a look at who exactly David Icke is, because you guys are going to really enjoy that as well.
Jimmy looking great.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, I wish I had better insight, but they certainly have a stranglehold on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not America first. He's Israel first. And right now he's censoring in the United States and at the behest of Israel. You know, this whole thing when at his inauguration, he gave a big speech where he said that the era of free speech is back. And of course, that was a lie. They hated the kind of narrative control that the woke left was having around things like DEI and ESG and trans issues and LGBTQ. So he's getting rid of that, but he's replacing it with another kind of censorship and it's all for they call any criticism of Israel, as you know, they call anti-Semitism.
And again, he's obviously not wrong about that. But David Icke is also not wrong to point out that Jimmy Dore absolutely was one of those people that told you to vote for Trump. And if you want to fucking pretend like that's not true, I'm sorry, but you know, I have a bridge to sell you. Like, if you're really that naive, if you're really that fucking gullible, obviously that was the point of Jimmy's show. I bet you 99% of his audience did vote for Trump, even if he never actually officially said the words, you should vote for Trump. How many clips did we react to of him saying that Trump was the lesser of two evils? Trump was the better candidate. Trump represented this, that, and the other that he apparently sided with, and RFK only was the cherry on top for Jimmy and his ideology. But, Zach, apparently Jimmy never did tell anyone to vote for Trump. Find a video of me saying that. You can't do it. In fact, I said the opposite. I couldn't vote Trump because of support of Zionists. Weird that you have to lie and try to discredit me just like the establishment hacks do. Isn't that interesting? And again, that's total fucking gaslighting. Even if the exact words never came out of Jimmy's mouth that you should vote for Trump, he made tons of content, video after video after video, hyping up Trump, talking about how Trump was the better of the two options, talking about how awesome RFK was. I mean, we could go on and on. We could play 1,000,000 hours of footage for you guys that obviously was pro-Trump content. It's not even fucking close.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We've referenced this clip a lot. But I think this is pretty clear about where he was sitting. This was with Sabby Sabs.
Well, Joe Biden is a bigger fascist than Donald Trump, and I'll debate anybody on that.
He wouldn't debate anybody on that, and that's because it's not true. But yeah, that's the exact kind of line of positioning that he was using to get his audience gassed up about voting for Trump. And he would also speculate and say that Donald Trump would be the anti-war candidate. He said that Donald Trump was going to be anti-war, that the Democrats love war. They cheerlead for war. Donald Trump is going to come in and he's going to actually try and end the wars. That was another thing that Jimmy kept saying over and over and over again.
Yeah, 100%. And in case anyone's not familiar, David Icke, let's take a look. Icke contends that the universe consists of vibrational energy and infinite dimensions sharing the same space. He argues that there is an interdimensional race of reptilian beings, the Archons or Anunnaki, which have hijacked the Earth. Further, a genetically modified human Archon hybrid race of reptilian shapeshifters, the Babylonian Brotherhood, aka the Illuminati or elite, manipulate events to keep humans in fear so that the Archon can keep feeding off of the resulting negative energy. And I hate to break the news to you guys, but sadly, this man has been accused of being anti-Semitic and a Holocaust denier, among other things. So, you know, it is what it is, but sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day. And it seems like this guy at least is able to keep it real on, you know, he's been keeping tabs on those people who pretended to be anti-establishment and never were. So, you know, I guess we can say that. Good for you, David. Thanks for calling out Jimmy Dore.
Anunnaki sounds like something that I would spend $60 on at a restaurant in Manhattan. You know what I mean? I'm like, but you know, to each their own. I've never heard of this guy, but that's fucking hilarious. I know that there are people who are convinced about the reptile thing, but you don't come across them very often, and it's hilarious that Jimmy hasn't crossed paths with this guy already, given that he's an expert in wormholes and
Well, I think that's why I responded to him.
Oh, interesting.
Because he's swimming in this water now, and he's like, "Oh fuck, David Icke's calling me out." That'd be like if like Sam Cedar called us out, you know, in the conspiracy world. Fucking David Icke, literally, like I'm pretty sure he's the guy who came up with the lizard people conspiracy. Like, he doesn't just believe it; he's the fucking L. Ron Hubbard
Godfather
of lizard people ideology. And here he is calling out Jimmy Dore, who again has kind of recently, as of 2020 post COVID, entered the vaccine conspiracy, Alex Jones crazy town space, right? So that's why he has to defend himself, or even feels the need to respond to this total crank.
Interesting. Oh, how? Oh god, this actually got even worse. It's like, oh my gosh, not only are you defending a raper in Russell Brand just because you think it'll be mildly beneficial to your career, but now you're also just swimming around with the reptile occupier, anti-Semitic, just deranged, brain fried, lead poison conspiracy theorist. Not even anything thoughtful.
Yep.
We're going to talk about another brain fried, lead poison conspiracy theorist later on in the show today, though.
Yep. And by the way, just as a last note on David Icke, I was doing some research on him this morning, and I thought it was pretty funny that apparently he used to be a huge member of the Green Party.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.